Okay, perfect. So we have the Delta, the Columbia, and the Rogue. Um, some of you attended the webinar yesterday. It's kind of a general overview of all of the V Plus embossers. This is going to be a little bit more in depth on the Rogue, the Columbia, the Delta, what they excel at. So with all of the embossers that we covered yesterday, all of the embossers today, any embosser you get from V Plus, so it can do Braille, tactile graphics, multi-dot height. So the V Plus embossers are the only ones that do the multi-dot height up to 8 different dot heights. We started using color patterns. They all ship with a complimentary version of the most current version of Tiger Software Suite. They're compatible with Windows, Mac, and Linux for printing. We do have we consider them printers, so they will print from any software. So we've got Lindsay's going to do a little demo today on how she uses Adobe Illustrator, which is typically a graphic design software. Just kind of show that it's you can create tactile graphics from anything for any of our embossers. So we have these are all available with Bluetooth or Wi-Fi using the TigerBox. I don't think I covered this a whole lot yesterday, but the TigerBox is it's a little USB box that allows a lot of extra functionality to it. So kind of the main things that people are looking for when they get a TigerBox is Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. But there's a lot of other things that the TigerBox can do on top of that as well. So first thing is you can do printing from like an Android or an iPhone directly through AirPrint. The other one is you can store files on the TigerBox, so you don't need to print directly from your computer. So you can plug the TigerBox in and then have it print without having the files needed to be on a computer. We also do free driver and firmware upgrades. All of the embossers will print math, science, music. They all come with a standard 12-month warranty with an extended warranty as well. And they're all compatible with kind of the industry, the standard software that most other of our competitors use for software like Duxbury, Braille 2000, Tactile View. A lot of people that are coming from competitors and embossers are very familiar with those pieces of software, and they are specific for Braille embossers, but you can use those as well. And then on top of that, with the V Plus embossers, you can use any program that has a print button. So with the extended warranty, we covered this yesterday a little bit, so I'll go kind of quick through it. But the biggest part of that is the annual factory maintenance. So it comes with firmware upgrades. We do cleaning, inspection, removal of paper and dust debris. We lubricate all the moving parts, align the embosser heads if needed. We clean out the electronic components and test the condition of and tension of the drive belts. And all of this is done really quickly. Usually it's about a 5-day turnaround. And then warranty and repair, that's exactly like it says. Any damage or anything like that that's covered in warranty, we refurbish that and put it back to new working condition. Again, 5-day turnaround on it. So this is kind of this will be part of what Lindsay shows a little bit today that we'll do towards the end of the slideshow here. But the nice part about using V Plus embossers is basically what you see is what you get. So here, this is one of the butterflies that she had created for the coloring book. And this is in Adobe Illustrator. So we have the Adobe Illustrator file that everybody that uses Illustrator will be familiar with, that can then be put into print preview or printed into a print preview. And then from there, you can print it out to the embosser. It's a little bit light on this screen, but we have the embossed version of the butterfly. So that is also That's with any program, so it doesn't have to be Adobe. You don't have to use specific fancy programs. I use Microsoft Paint. I will show you that today as well, which is we're going to show the beginner version and the advanced version today. So to understand the Columbia and the Delta, these were the first two that we had come out with that used the new technology. These are so grouped with the Columbia, the Delta, and the Rogue. Over the past few years, we've come out with these embossers that really is allowing for a lot higher dots per inch resolution, and we did that by changing the way the embossers work. So traditionally with the embossers we're going to cover tomorrow, the solenoids punch into a platen, so the grid is fixed, and it is you can't move the dots anywhere. And so with the Columbia was the first embosser we came out with the new technology, and the solenoids punch into a cup or a die on the other side of the paper, and with doing so, that allows that solenoid to move anywhere you want. So we have that set to 100 DPI, but it will not move the dots any closer than either 17 or 20 DPI, depending on the embosser. But being able that you can move that anywhere on a 100 DPI grid, that allows lines to be smoother, circles to be rounder, and it really kind of changed the way that tactographics look. The reason we did this is before the Columbia came out, everything punched into a platen, which gave that traditional tiger dot that Vueplus is known for, which is great for tactographics. But when it comes to printing Braille, it was not the industry standard. When you come across Braille on textbooks or things like that, it's the traditional rounded dot. So our focus behind the new revolution in the way we create our embossers was creating that really traditional Braille dot that everybody is used to, and we worked very hard to come up with the designing that Braille dot, and we call that the power dot. So in creating that, it changed the way that we manufacture the embossers, which has had a ton of other benefits behind that. So originally the Columbia came out, which is our tractor feed paper embosser. Shortly after that, we came out with the Delta, which is a very similar embosser, a few more moving parts behind it because it is a cut sheet embosser, but this is kind of the brother and sister of the traditional Braille dot, double-sided, very, very versatile machine of what you would expect out of a Braille and tactographics embosser. Both of these machines are very fast. They'll do up to 120 characters per second, and that is up to 400 pages per hour of A4 paper. This is that higher resolution of 100 DPI, and a max width of 12 inches. The Tiger Plus graphics. So Tiger Plus is the 100 DPI, and these will do 100 pages per month of duty cycle. And then on the Delta, which the Delta was the first embosser that we started to do the 2-pass printing on, which is where you can print ink on one machine and then or ink on an ink printer and then load that into the Delta and also print the same file to emboss that paper. So a couple examples we have here for the Columbia and Deltas. We have on the left side is the map with just the embossing. This is normally what it would look like. The middle and the right is the 2-pass method with the Delta. And so some of the history on the Columbia and the Delta, this was created for the power dot, which is the strongest, most readable Braille dot that we have ever had. The Delta has a 50 sheet stack feeder. The Columbia is a tractor fed embosser. So, with a box of 1,000, you have a pretty good supply of paper there without having to attend to it a whole lot. Um, so we released the Columbia Delta 2, and we released the Columbia Delta 2, which in the upgrade from the Columbia Delta to the Columbia Delta 2 was we did this to redesign the solenoid tips to provide an even higher quality braille dot. We're still continuing to make improvements on it, but some of the other things that came with the Columbia Delta 2 was an improvement over alignment and stability. We've also used this for private labels through APH and Irie. So the Pix Blaster is the Columbia. The Braille Track is the Columbia as well for Irie, and the Braille Sheet is the Delta. So a couple different versions of where you can get this through a white label. APH is great if you have quota funds and you want to purchase that through quota funds. Each one of these packages. So Irie offers a little bit of a different package than we do. APH offers a different package. So depending on whether you want quota funds or whether you want the Tiger box included in that, sometimes there may be a better package for you for that. But either way, whether it's Irie, APH, or View Plus, you can rest easy knowing that you will have a quality embosser. So, is the Columbia or Delta right for you? What is it that you want so what it can do is very traditional, sturdy round dots. It does double-sided printing. It does the high resolution of 100 DPI. Because the dots on the Columbia and Delta have that super sturdy round dot, we do have a 17 DPI dot density. Which means even though it is 100 DPI resolution, it will only put the dots within 17 DPI of each other. And it does that because with the other embossers, they are a little bit closer at 20 DPI, but that's because the triangle tiger dot or the pyramid tiger dot it is easier to get the dots closer together. If you need tractor fed paper, the Columbia is the choice for you. If you want sheet fed, the Delta is the choice for you. And then with these, you can do adjustable braille dot spacing, but by default we do have that set to 17. So what it can't do is the tiger dots. So if you like the tiger dots, the Columbia Delta is not the embosser for you. The 20 DPI is a little bit closer, but that comes with the tiger dots. That's the only way you can get the 20 DPIs with the tiger dot. If you need built-in ink, you'd probably be looking for something like a Spot Dot or a Elite with an Ink Connect or an Elite with a Colored Ink Connect. And neither one of these are production level embossers. Those are Elite and Premier. Both of them are great if you're printing less than 1,000 pages a month. These are both great embossers. So where we see these used at, primarily it's classrooms, restaurants, libraries, churches. The sweet spot that I really like to see with these embossers paired is I really like to see a Columbia with a Rogue sheet. Reason being is the Columbia is the tractor fed embosser, and traditionally with Braille, you have your tractor. Braille is fairly simple to print its text, so you can use the Columbia for that. It's super reliable. You don't need to monitor it a whole lot. And so the Columbia is great on the text side. And then if you do the Rogue sheet, you get the benefit of having the sheet-fed embosser, which means you get 2-pass printing. And the tactile graphics of the tiger dots make the dots closer together. So my preferred pairing is the Columbia and the Rogue sheet. Also, you can do the reverse of that, to where if you want to do the Delta and the Rogue Crack, I like to have one sheet-fed embosser and one tractor feed embosser. But if you are looking for a great all-around printer, the Columbia Delta covers all of the bases. This is probably our most popular embosser that the Columbia is the most popular one that we sell, um, just because it's traditional with the braille dots. It's a pretty simple embosser to use. Makes fantastic braille, great tactile graphics, and it is exactly what you would expect out of a braille embosser. With that, with all of the embossers, we do have several different modes you can print in. So we have the Columbia here, and you can see the difference on the left side between draft mode. Draft mode is very fast at printing, but the dots are not quite as pronounced. The dot placement is not as precise. So the biggest difference I see is between like draft mode on the left and best mode on the right. You'll see the lines on the diagram here. This is perfectly placed lines. The dots are very very pronounced. Whereas over here on draft mode, the lines sometimes are very straight, but sometimes as you get curves, it'll kind of widen that line out a little bit. Some of the parts of the cell are a little easier to read on the best mode. So next we have the Rogue, and the Rogue is an interesting embosser. I really like the Rogue. This came out after the Columbia and the Delta, and so kind of our thought pattern behind this is before the Rogue we had the View Plus Max, which we had a ton of people that loved the Max. But the Max is an old embosser, very good embosser, but it was time for an upgrade. The Max was very fast, and we had come out with a lot of new technology in designing the Columbia and the Delta to be able to make a much better embosser that was fast, focused on tactile graphics the way the Max did. And so we took all of the things we learned from making the Columbia and the Delta, and we put that into the Rogue. So how the Columbia and Delta are set up, we have the Columbia being the tractor feed embosser and the Delta being the cut sheet embosser. When we made the Rogue, we decided not to split that up between models. We didn't do two different names. We just called it the Rogue. And so there's the Rogue sheet and the Rogue track, depending on the paper type that you want. But the internals, other than the sheet feeding part of that, is all pretty much the same. And what we did here is for those people that really like the Tiger Dot for tactile graphics, we kept the Tiger Dot in here. This took quite a bit of thinking because we were trying to figure out how to get the Tiger Dot back into an embosser without having the platen in it, because the platen's limitation was that fixed 20 DPI grid. We wanted the 100 DPI grid that we had learned how to create from the Columbia and Delta. So we had a lot of R&D time went into how to create that with this. We did master that. So we have the combined technology that we had from the older platen to create the Tiger Dot, with the newer technology of the higher DPI to create the Rogue. Now, because tactile graphics are not printed on both sides, we made the Rogue a single-sided embossing machine. The benefit to that is all of the effort for printing is put into one side. This is also 120 characters per second, but it is rated based off of the characters per second, just like with the Columbia and the Delta. The Columbia and the Delta's characters per second is rated on double-sided because they do print double-sided. The Rogue only prints single-sided, so you get 120 characters per second single-sided on the Rogue. So if you're printing only single-sided and you want a fast embosser and you don't mind the Tiger Dots, or you like the Tiger Dots, the Rogue is a fantastic machine. Single-sided, this thing is twice as fast as the Columbia or the Delta. Very similar with this, we have the 100 DPI, 7 to 12 inches of paper width, so that standard 11.5 by 11 on the tractor feed paper is fantastic. On the Rogue sheet, I love to see this embosser with the 11 by 17, even like cardstock paper. Cardstock paper is really easy to find. It prints great on this machine. The 11 by 17 goes great going through an office printer as a tabloid size paper. So with the Rogue Sheet, you get a lot of functionality there. So we have the Tiger Plus graphics. Again, this is rated at 1,000 pages per month. It's backwards compatible with all the Max files because we have kind of the best of both worlds there with the things we learned from the Columbia and Delta, and we also have the technology of the Tiger Dot. So creating those 100 DPI files as well as the 20 DPI files makes it backwards compatible for the Macs. And you can also combine color and tactile using the 2-pass method with the Rogue Sheet. So speaking of the 11 by 17, here's a couple examples that Lindsay has printed here. The left and the right examples have this. The left one is a snake with that was printed in color. And we have the right one of the respiratory system, and then we have the moon phases here in the middle. That is just the embossing, and you can see the difference in the dot here is going to be that Tiger Dot. So some people love the Tiger Dot. Some people are not used to it and tend to lean more towards the Power Dot. So history of the Rogue, we kind of went over this already a little bit, but it was created to replace the Max based on a whole new technology focused on single-sided, focused on high-quality tactile graphics. It is the best of the best for features. You can also do pattern fill and also dot height. The Rogue is 2 machines in one, so whether you have the Rogue Track or the Rogue Sheet, if you are looking for if you're looking for an embosser that's kind of the workhorse and needs to go with the smarter balance school testing, the Rogue Track is your better option. And because the paper with tractor fed paper comes with 1,000 sheets in box, whereas you have a 30 sheet feeder on the Rogue Sheet. So where this is used at, we use this with smarter balance testing. If you need to do an upgrade from your VP Max embosser, the Max is a great embosser. We still see people use that thing all the time. But if you're looking for an upgrade, the Rogue is a great upgrade for that. Also, scenarios for tactile graphics are the primary printed type. That is where this thing really shines, is in creating tactile graphics. If you already have a Columbia, the Rogue pairs great with that, or a Delta. But we talked about earlier where my favorite pairing is the Columbia with the Rogue Sheet. Also, where you don't want it. So if you're looking for that traditional Power Dot, rounded Braille dot shape, the Rogue is not your machine. If you need double-sided, the Rogue is not your machine. And I have this last one in here as a joke. But it is true, if you need your documents to print slow as molasses, the Rogue is not your machine. The Rogue is, I think, without going into the production level embossers, the Rogue is our fastest machine that we have, especially for doing tactile graphics. So we do have a couple examples here, very similar to with the Columbia and the Delta. So we have the draft mode on the left, standard mode in the middle, and then we have best mode on the right. Again, you can see in the dot placement, you definitely get a tactile graphic here, but it is not nearly as legible as it is in best mode. Especially with the Rogue being so fast, you can put it in best mode, and you still have a very fast embosser, even in best mode, but you get those really high quality tactile graphics. So the 2-pass method, you can do this with smaller paper, larger paper. In the office, we really like to do this with cardstock, 11 by 17 size paper, and we have an ink printer, just a standard office ink printer that'll print tabloid size paper. And we print the ink on there, like I think the previous example, one of these here, like with the snake on it. So you can print just the ink, and then you load the ink into either the Delta or the Rogue sheet. The embosser doesn't read the ink; it doesn't even know the ink is there. The impressive thing behind all of this is when you hit print from your computer to emboss on the paper, we have perfected these machines so much that where an ink printer would print ink, the embosser, instead of printing ink, embosses, but the alignment between an ink printer's ink and the embossing of either the Rogue sheet or the Delta is almost perfect. So it is a pretty interesting process. I like doing the 2-pass method. We just came out with the Color Ink Connect for the Elite, which is a single pass method. It is a production level embosser, but it kind of takes out the middle step. That is a fantastic option as well that we will cover tomorrow. So when you're looking at embossers, especially spending the type of money that an embosser is, we are always trying to compare ourselves to competitors. Trying to figure out what we can do. That's part of the reason we came out with the Columbia and the Delta is for a while, we were kind of the weird dot people. That Tiger dot, while some people loved it, is not a normal Braille dot. So we came out with the Columbia and the Delta to get that normal traditional Braille dot. So, here looking at one of our competitors' Braille sheets, you can see, just kind of at a surface level, you think, oops, you think, at a surface level, you think, oh, great, that looks like Braille. But when you start looking at the Braille dots in here, there are a lot of flaws that make it hard to read. And so, you can see here on this character, the center 2 dots are very close together. We have that up here as well. These ones are separated. So we have wavy dots that are not great. We have a zoomed in version here. But then there's also inconsistent spacing. So if you look at the spacing, between some of these here, it's wider, very skinny, extra wide. And you see that with the wavy dots and the inconsistent spacing. And kind of the way I look at it is, if you're spending money on embosser, you should be getting the embosser that has the best features, the best repeatable printing, high reliability. And so our dots are a little bit different shaped. You'll notice the other dots are wider from our competitors, but they're also not very consistent. And traditionally, if you look at a Braille dot printed somewhere else, whether it's on plastic or wherever that's at, they tend to be more of a sharper, very sturdy Braille dot. And so you'll notice with our Braille dots, they do have that sharper image. We spent a lot of time perfecting this dot. And so you'll notice the spacing on here is perfect. They're not wavy. So it is a very clear Braille dot. It makes it very easy to read. And it is fun when we get to go to the shows. We have ATIA coming up here in a couple of weeks, and watching people interact with this and how fast they can read the Braille coming out of the Columbia and the Delta is truly impressive. So if you want, you can contact us a couple different ways. So if you have no experience with Braille embossers, or just curious about what is the difference between the Power Dot and the Tiger Dot, how different is that Tiger Dot? You can always request samples. So you can request samples through viewplus.com/request samples. If you want more detail on this, you can always book a demo. I am more than happy to answer any questions you have. If it's not covered in here, if you have a specific question, go to viewplus.com/demo. And you can book a demo with me, whether that's a 30-minute phone call or if you want to have a kind of a Teams demo like this, we can do that. You can sign up for a newsletter. We're always sending out updates, things like that. We also have YouTube where you can go back and watch previous webinars, tutorials. You can email sales. And I always, I like to, I'm a hands-on person. And so we do have the Tiger Software Suite, which comes with all of our embossers. You can print samples out from the Tiger Software Suite. You can download it and create your tactile graphics. Then you could email me those files. So I'll put my email in the chat here, but you can email either me or sales those files and ask for those to be sent to you as samples. And we can send you samples of any of the embossers printing that out. So that's a great option as well. So a couple things I wanted to cover today. First off, I want to go over that these are truly printers. So we're going to go starting off in super easy mode. And I'm going to open Microsoft Paint. So I'm pretty sure most of you that use Windows are familiar with Microsoft Paint at some level. Probably not the ideal program for creating tactile graphics, but I just want to show that how simple this is to create tactile graphics for some of these. So let's say that you have a, let's say we want to draw, a mountain here. You know what? We're going to make it a little bit more of a flex mountain. We're going to be drawing stuff. We're going to have fun with it. And so we've got some mountains. I'm going to, let's do an arrow here. I like to do, we're going to pretend these are trees. Just because I can't draw, we're going to pretend those are trees. And then I'm going to find, so we have a little star. So we got the sun. And so if you had something as simple as this, if you just, I need to make a tactile graphic, I need to show something, I can't find it anywhere, I'm not good at drawing stuff, and you just, you're familiar with something, whether that's Microsoft Paint, whether that's Word, CorelDRAW, whatever you're comfortable with, it works with our embossers. And I'm just going to hit Control P, and then you select your printer. So right now I have this selected as the View Plus imprint, which is the Spot Dot. But since we're covering the Columbia, actually, you know what? We're going to do the Rogue Sheet. The Rogue Sheet's one of my favorites. We're going to do the Rogue Sheet. And I'm going to say print. And this is going to print from those mountains. And what this is doing is this is printing to, it's print a file. I can send that directly to a printer if you want. But I like to do the print a file because it shows you on screen. So you get to see what it's going to look like on the webinar instead of us having to wait for it to print. So it's going to print for a second, and this should save a file on my desktop. And so we have mountains here. And I can open this up, and this is the tactile graphic that we just created. So it is literally as simple as if you can use Microsoft Paint, we have trees, we have the star, anything that has a print button can be used to print. Let's say that we jump on the internet here, and we're trying to share. We're trying to share something like the Nike swoosh and show how this is, what this looks like. So we can open this. Go ahead and grab the image here, or right click on this and just hit Save Image. So Nike swoosh, that's a PNG. That's not even a, it's not a JPEG or anything. We're just going to save this to the desktop. Hit Save. So we have Nike swoosh here. This is Windows Image Viewer. And again, I can just hit Control P. I can select the printer. We're just going to stay with the Rogue Sheet. And this asks what paper size we have. It's the same as it is with an ink printer. So right now it's not set to fill the page. It's set at full size. So I can say shrink to fit. It's going to shrink that logo down a little bit. You can adjust things like full page, or if I want to do smaller. Let's actually just say that a little bit smaller. I hit print. Let's say this is Nike. And so we have the Nike swoosh here. Oh, it's still printing. Some of the programs don't have a print progress bar, so I get a little bit excited and I click on it a little too soon. There we go. So here we have an image we found off the internet of the Nike swoosh. We're creating tactile graphics in seconds. If you have programs like Word, so you can open up Microsoft Word. And we're going to do just so we're going to put some text in here. We're going to insert an image into it. Oops, I wanted from online pictures. Do a Fox cartoon. So we have a Fox cartoon here. We have text. We have an image. We're going to translate the document, which is going to translate the text from text to Braille. It's going to ask me to save it. Done this file a couple of times, so I have to overwrite it. Oops. I did. Looks like the Braille spaced down there a little bit, but from here I can just actually, you know what? This is another. So because of the way I had it spaced, I want to reload the original document, and this is going to put it back. I'm going to space the Fox down just a little bit, so that way that it has room for the Braille. We'll go back to Tiger, translate document. This will retranslate. It should have the Braille show up at the top on this one. Perfect. So we have text, Braille. Let's do Control P again. I have the spot dot selected here, so just to keep with consistency, we're going to do the rogue sheet. Print. So this is Fox to desktop. This is thinking here. Okay, looks like it's done printing. If I refresh my desktop, Fox, and this is again, Braille, tactile graphics. All of the embossers can do Braille and tactile graphics in both. We do have Tiger Designer as well. So I'm going to kind of show the difference between what you get with the 100 DPI versus the 20 DPI. And then I'm going to have Lindsay take over for a second and show some of the more advanced stuff on kind of how she creates tactile graphics in Adobe Illustrator, because it is a pretty cool process. And she creates coloring books. I don't know if you guys know, but we have coloring books for sale. If you have V+ printers, you can download the files for free and print your own coloring books. So when you open Tiger Designer, you can say new file. And so we're doing emboss only. So we have the Tiger technology. And so when you draw stuff like a circle on here, shift, so it's going to be a perfectly round circle. You'll see this little stair step here where it's not perfectly round. The other thing too is if you do a line, let's put like a 30-degree-ish line in here, you'll see it kind of stair steps. And so we get 2 dots, 1 dot, 2 dot, 2 dot, 1 dot. And so we've kind of got a little pattern here going, but it's not a perfectly smooth single line. Although it is very, very predictable. So if you do a filled circle, all of the dots are perfectly lined up. So that 20 DPI grid that you get with the Platen is fantastic. If you want very predictable dots and you know exactly where they're going to be, that is a great option. Let me open up another one here. So this is the older technology with that's the older technology with the 20 DPI Platen. We're going to do the newer technology. This is with the Columbia, the Delta, and the Rogue. So we have the Tegra Plus. And so when we go to create a circle, the same thing. I'm going to hold Shift, create a circle. I have my DPI set different. So let's do preferences. So I have this set to 50 DPI. We're going to change this back down to, I'm going to change this to 17. Actually, I'm going to change it to 20, which is apples to apples comparison. And so as I draw a circle here, oops, hold Shift, you'll notice the circle is perfectly round. The diagonal lines, it doesn't matter whether you create a 45, it doesn't matter whether you create a 30, a 10, any of the lines are very, very straight. And so what that does is between the two of them, it doesn't move the dots any closer having the higher DPI, but it gives it the option to place them wherever it needs to place them within a 100 DPI grid. So you still get the consistency of that. And the newer technology allows a lot crisper lines on dot placement. So we've come up with a lot of cool things with that to be able to make tactographics that much more accessible. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. And let's go ahead and Lindsay, if you want to take over here and you can share your screen.
Sure.
And Lindsay does all of our coloring books. So yeah, if you haven't jumped on the View Plus website to take a look at the coloring books, I think we've got 5 volumes out so far. They're super fun. She's got activity books, coloring books. Again, these are true printers, so you can print from perfect. Yeah, you can print from any computer that has or any program that has a print button.
Yeah, I make all of the coloring books. I draw the image part in Illustrator, and then I export it as SVG, and I import that into Word just to have the entire coloring book as one Word document, because I find that that's easier for other people to print if they have their own embosser, because all of them can print from Word. And all of them can print from any program, but not everybody has Illustrator. So I find that Word is one of the easiest ones. But you can download them all here. And if you don't have your own printer, then you can buy them from our store. And you can also add Braille labeled triangle shaped crayons. But I do almost all of my work in Illustrator. And I'm going to draw a little boat just to show how easy it is to start from scratch and just draw something. This is a fresh 8.5 by 11 document, which is usually the size that I work with. I print most of my things on either a Rogue sheet or a Delta. Those are the two that I have in my office that I stole out of the demo room. So they're mine now. But the Rogue is really great for tactile graphics. I print most of my coloring books on the Rogue, just because for single-sided printing it's faster. And if I want to do any double-sided Braille documents, I like to use the Delta. I print all of the crayon labels on the Delta. I make greeting cards on the Delta. It just does really good, nice, rounded Braille. Let's get a sun in there with the ellipse tool, and then also grab the paintbrush and just draw some little waves down here. So we have a boat with some waves and a sun, and I'm gonna print that to the Rogue sheet. And if I go into setup here, I have print preview on. So you can save it as a PRN by using print to file, or if you have a printer connected, then if you have preview on, when you hit print, it'll pop up with a preview. And I use a 2-point line that gives about 1 row of dots, but down here it's a little thicker, so there's a double line. If you want to adjust how thick the line comes out, you can go into your it's under printing preferences, Tiger, and more options. You can adjust contrast, brightness, and thin line intensity. So this will make the lines thicker or less thick. And if you want to add text, adding text Braille text is really easy in Word because the translation is built in. But for other programs, you can use, you can type in whatever you want here. I'm just going to type in boat on the water. And you can just format this like regular text. And then I'm going to copy this, and what I use all the time that comes with TSS is the Vue+ translator, and it will translate whatever you have copied in your clipboard. And you've got some options here for Braille type and math Braille type, and whether you want capitals or jumbo Braille or micro Braille. So I'm going to translate to grade 2, click translate, and this is already copied to my clipboard. So I'll just come in here, add a new text box, paste it in, and then since this is Braille, I need to format this to a Braille font. That's French Braille. Let me find the US Braille, not computer. Here we go. And then since it's Braille 36, I'm gonna change it to a 36-point font. And there is my Braille. And so now when I print, the Braille is right there. It also printed the text, which if you don't want that to show up, you can hide the layer. And if you, same for if you're printing the ink version first to an ink printer, then you can hide the Braille. But what you can also do is change the color to white. And so the ink printer won't print the Braille because it's white on a white background, but the embosser still knows it's there. So if you go to print now, it'll still show up. And actually, another thing I was going to show, let me go back and hide that. As far as the line thickness goes, if you already have it saved as a PRN, then you can open Tiger Designer and select which parts. I'm just going to select the waves down here and then go to transform color, and here you can adjust the contrast and brightness and edges. So now I've got this down to just one line. And this is a little bit lower dot height, so I'm going to select this and, oops. Let me reopen that. And go to transform color and just up the contrast or edges. And so this is how I make all of my my coloring pages in Illustrator. And like I said, I export this as SVG code, and then I paste it into Word, and that's how I get the coloring books that I upload to the website that you can download and print.
And you had mentioned something that I completely had forgot about is the the Avery labels.
Mm-hmm.
That is one thing that's nice about having the cut sheet embossers. The cut sheet and the tractor feed tend to fall into two different categories depending on what somebody's looking for. So if somebody wants to print a whole lot of something and just hit print and let it go, the tractor fed embossers tend to be really good for that. But the cut sheet embossers, like I've got business cards sitting here that were printed on Avery Label's business card templates that have the ink printed out from the ink printer and then the embosser on here. So I don't necessarily want to say it's like a crafty embosser because it does a lot more than that. But the cut sheet embossers have, with the two-pass method, just allows um, a lot of creativity to come in there. So maybe it's probably a good way to sum that up is, one's if you're more focused on creating things that need creativity, or if you need like the reliability of, I don't even want to say reliability because they're both reliable, but maybe the consistency of tractor fed embosser. Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
depending on what you're looking for, you mentioned the Delta and the Rogue Sheet, which is a great option for what you do with the coloring books, and you're doing a lot of things that are smaller batches of printing out stuff, but it's stuff that you can't do on a tractor fed embosser. So part of the reason we're having this is to help people figure out how to pick the right embosser, because they're all great. It's just a matter of how do you want to use it.
Yeah, and that's another thing I forgot to mention, that I print all of our business cards on a Delta using the two-pass method because I have Avery business card stock that I print on our office laser printer first, and then I load it into the Delta to emboss the braille on the cards. And that's just that's why I like having a Delta and a Rogue Sheet, which is two cut sheet embossers, because I personally usually use don't usually need to use tractor paper because I do a lot of single page documents mostly. But with the pair that I have, I feel like whatever I want to create, I can do it with either a Rogue or a Delta, and that works for me.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to sum that up. Does anybody have any questions? We got really close to 1 hour without allowing any time for questions. So does anybody have any questions or anything they would like to um is hold on, let's see. Chat, is the Columbia compatible with Tactile View? There are shadow dots when I emboss from Tactile View from my Columbia. It is compatible with Tactile View. I would have to double check on some of the settings on that because a lot of times the way Lindsay was showing like how to adjust things in some of the settings to make the lines a single line or darker, There should be some sort of settings within TactileView that can do the same thing there. I'm not super familiar with TactileView, but I know a ton of people use the Columbia with TactileView. Looks like we got Pat jumping in here. We got a couple questions coming in. So yes, to answer your question, it is compatible. It's probably just a settings feature, and I can check with the team. We do have one person on the team that uses TactileView more than the rest of us, so I can check with them and get back to you with an answer on that one.
Question in Q&A.
Okay, let's figure out how to get to Q&A here real quick.
It should be right next to the chat tab.
Q&A. Perfect. I haven't used this before, so it's loading here. Diagrams and spreadsheets. It depends on that. Pat, are you using? Hold on one second here. Let's just. So Pat, I'm going to allow you to use your mic here. So you're still muted, but you can unmute yourself if you want. So diagrams and spreadsheets, do you have any specific programs you're using or the output file of that? Are you trying to, do you need ink printed on that at all for your diagrams and spreadsheets? Pat's jumping in here. I'm going to try to get the Q&A to load one more time. Oh, here we go. Yes. So, Vivian, that's perfect. So what you're talking about there, Vivian, is with over the last couple of years, we've come out with color pattern fill. And let me share my screen here real quick. Share, and we're gonna open up this, and I have one of these here. So it's gonna start me at the beginning. It's okay. So on the sunflower here, we have a color pattern fill that depending on the color, it will do a specific pattern every time you print. So you'd mentioned swirls, so you can map those patterns to specific colors to where every time you print out, let's say blue, it'll print a swirl pattern. So as you're making your graphics, you can specify there that, I want blue to be swirls. With this mapping here, we have vertical lines for yellow. And then we have, I call this the grass pattern because it looks like ground with little pieces of grass, which I think is very fitting for green. But absolutely, it does come with default patterns, but you can change all of those patterns to whatever you want. So hopefully that helps answer your question. Pat, real quick, I'm going to jump back in there and kind of answer that question the best I can here for you. So all of the embossers we have will print diagrams and spreadsheets. If you're primarily doing a graphics type of stuff with diagrams and spreadsheets, I would lean probably more towards one of the embossers that has the tiger dot. Yes, so the color, hold on one second. Well, so Pat, I would probably lean more towards one of the embossers that has the tiger dot for that, because that will allow the dots to be closer together. So for diagrams and charts and things like that, the dots are a little closer together with the tiger dot. I would probably lean towards a Rogue, depending on how much you're printing. If you want color on that, and you're looking for the production level stuff, the Color Ink Connect is great on the Elite, and that is a fantastic combo. If you don't need color, there's a couple different options. If you want, I can reach out to you after this, Pat, and we can talk about some of the options for finding out what exactly you need. But we tend to see most people that are doing diagrams and spreadsheets on a Tiger embosser. And then Vivian, you had asked about the color. It doesn't have to print color. So if you don't want to print color, you don't have to do that. We can also go in here. Let me share my screen real quick. Share your screen. And so I'm just going to take this Tiger Designer file that we're working with here. And so if you want to add patterns to this, do a pattern fill, and I don't have a swirl pattern created right now, but you can pick, I'm going to pick this freshness pattern, and I'm going to say I want this to be in a lower dot height. And so you can do fills with that. So there's a lot of different ways to get different patterns in there. You can just Control Z and undo that. We can select different patterns, do different patterns to fill it in. It's really easy to add and remove patterns, adjust patterns, things like that. We have a Tiger software suite, kind of how-to beginners webinar. That's great for kind of diving in how to create patterns. But patterns, I guess to answer your question, patterns are very easy. Depends on how you want to use them, but we can absolutely print patterns really easily with this. Kind of, I guess, to summarize, the whole goal behind what we have tried to the drive behind our innovation in this is to make tactile graphics and Braille easy. We had a question here on Tactile View. Tactile View is a great program, but there is a learning curve to it. Same thing with Duxbury. Those are very specific programs for making tactile graphics or Braille. We're trying to make this stuff. You can still, if you use those, great. There's nothing against using those. But we try to make our embossers very easy to use with whatever you're used to. So if you're like me and you use Microsoft Paint and Word, awesome. Those tools work great. If you're like Lindsay, a little more advanced, and you want to use Adobe Illustrator, awesome. We have another guy that we talk to occasionally that he does CAD drawings for architecture. He's very familiar with CAD, and he prints with that. So I can't stress that enough. If it has a print button, it can be printed from one of our embossers. We do have another webinar tomorrow. This might actually be good for you, Pat, if you're available. Let me grab the link to that real quick. I'm going to throw it in the chat. And so this is on the Elite, the Premier, the Spot Dot, and the Embraille. And here's a link to that if you guys want to go tomorrow. So this is kind of our older embossers. This is the Tiger technology. All of them are great embossers. We have one extra one that we're covering, but covering everything from the production level down to the personal embosser tomorrow. So should be a good webinar tomorrow. Very similar to this one, just different machines to help you guys figure out what's a good option for you. Cool. If we don't have any other questions, we'll go ahead and call this a webinar, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Yes, thank you, Vivian.